In this episode, we talk to, I don't talk to at all. Dale talks to Michael Lepage in the flesh about all things interesting to planning current and future state, the disruption of technology and industry, what is the real competencies needed to be in that space. Dale, I wish I was there, but I wasn't. How was it?
No, we did miss you. As usual, we gave you a bit of flack on it as well. But this episode, I think Michael gives you a challenge about grit. But no, it was interesting. We had Chirag Shah there as well. Unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties with his microphone, but you can pick up a bits of what he's talking about, specifically from the recruitment side, skills required for now and the future, etc. But Michael was amazing as always. Gave his view specifically from North America coming across to the UK on the current state of planning and how technology, AI specifically, is impacting the profession. But it was a real privilege, Val. We did miss you. We were in person, and it was amazing to meet Michael face to face. So we'll leave it there, listeners. As we say, keep listening, keep liking, and keep paying it forward.
We understand construction. I think how we can help is identifying that risk up front and enabling the transparency that our tools bring to the table.
Hello, project people, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Project Chatter podcast. As you can see, if you're watching us on YouTube, it gives me great pleasure to be in person with Mr. Michael Lepage. Welcome, Michael.
Hey, thanks, Dale.
And we also have Chirag Shah returning, the dirty recruiter. Is that your nickname we're giving you? No? Okay. We don't obviously have Val on this episode. I believe it's a little bit early for him, Michael, he said. But he talks a lot about grit.
Yes.
And I asked him where his grit was, and he said it goes with age. I don't know if that's a true thing or not. Maybe just Australian and soft. Who knows?
I had some grit. I didn't sleep to get over here. I was at Red Eye Flight, and it was delayed.
Challenge laid down.
There's some grit.
It's great to have you here in London. I know you come every so often, and we threatened that whenever you did come again, we'd get together, and here you are. And be interesting just to sort of, I guess, see, what's been happening in your world. You're obviously here for Digital Construction Week as well.
Yeah.
Day one today, and then another day tomorrow. And we don't know where this conversation is going to get going, but I want to, I guess, go back to when we first had you on the pod and just show appreciation again, because we were relatively unknown when you first appeared. And I think I told you the story where we were just some no-name brands, and we were just reaching out to our network that knew us. And Val got all excited, going, I'm going to see if I can get Michael Lepage, superstar. And he replied, we got all excited. And so thank you, because you really helped us catapult this podcast to where it is today. So Thank you very much. And thank you for being here in person.
Well, you're really welcome. You guys have done some incredible things, right? From where you started to get to here. It's pretty impressive. I'm happy to be here in London. Actually, I don't get here enough. I've been really, I know some people here in the UK. There's a long time. I'm going to just drop some names. A former colleague of mine, David Cumming, who he and I have collaborated on some things. He lives in Wales, and I was hoping to connect with him. We know some people here, and obviously there's a lot of exciting project control stuff happening. So we made the effort. We wanted to check out Digital Construction Week as well. It was kind of a recommended conference to get to for, hot things that are happening in our world. And
are there hot things happening?
I think so. Seems like, well, number one, let me say, a lot of conferences that we've picked to go to, these kind of project controls focused ones, they're pretty small, and this feels like 10 times the size, right? Like this is really big. And with that, I think for me brings a little bit of excitement, because there's some things you don't get exposed to, bigger technology companies, bigger players, kind of like some more of the cutting edge stuff. So it's pretty neat. Like, I guess what's surprising for me is how many startups there are in this world. There's a lot of startups. There's a lot of guys thinking about problems that need to be solved, and like getting some funding and putting it together and going for it.
It's definitely the year of the startups and the SMEs, for sure.
Right. Yeah. So That's pretty cool.
I guess it's interesting and scary at the same time because, being there, as you say, there is so much. And from one perspective, it's amazing because there's so much and there's so many people are thinking about how to improve the way we deliver projects using technology. But then from the other hand, it's like, well, as a practitioner or someone that wants to deliver projects better, where do I start? And so I think from my perspective, I think everyone is probably heading in the same direction eventually, and be interesting to see sort of what comes out of all of this, because there's everything from, I saw the Boston Dynamics dog, the robot dog there, all the way through to 3D visualizations and the like, through to how ChatGPT impacts, AI impacts the way you deliver projects.
Definitely.
I was chatting with Chirag about how, he's going to be out of a job. AI's taking
There's
out.
a recruiter GPT. It's coming.
Yeah. But what does this all mean for training, though? Because P6, we spoke when we first spoke, your first episode with us, around how Primavera is clunky and all of this. And I know you do other things other than Primavera as well. But what does this all mean for I guess Primavera and planners in general? Where do you think it's all heading with this technology?
Well, I wish I had a clear sense of it, but I'm always surprised at how P6 still has this firm kind of grasp. P6 and Microsoft Project, they're still really staples. It's like bread and butter. It just keeps coming back. We just we stick with these tools, and it is exciting to see all the cool tech. Right? There's some real tech. And some real things that can start to add some layers to the workflow, automating things. And I would love that, because I think we're, especially in this kind of like P6, it's all just data entry. You're sitting in this tool, entering everything manually. And you can see how we need to change that. But yet there's just such a pervasiveness to it. I think companies are not ready to dump what's tried and proven to go for what's hot and sexy yet.
Do you think it'll be a cliff edge or a gradual sort of adoption?
I think it'll be slow. It'll be slow. Yeah. Right? I don't know. That's my opinion. What do you guys think?
I think it will be a slow approach, because for companies to approach it, the people that push it away are a lot of the time the people at the top of the tree. So it'll take a long time because people don't like change.
I think there's some truth to that. Evan's over here, my video producer, and we were talking at lunch, I think, just about. We saw a panel. There was a panel, and Fred Mills was hosting the panel, and they were talking about, and they had a new acronym. It's called BLI, which is Building Lifecycle Intelligence or Innovation or something like that, which is essentially like a digital twin kind of thing with a new acronym on it. And the question in the panel was like, should we do this? Are we ready for it? And of course, there was everybody in the panel was like, of course, yes, we should do this. Why aren't we doing it? We should do it. And I think because a lot of these companies are my clients, I think if you sat down with a construction manager, they would probably say, like, some of them, let me say it this, not everybody, but I think there's still a lot of construction managers that would say, like, I don't need this fancy stuff. Like, I know how to pour concrete, and like, we know how to get this done. Like, I don't need to add a layer of complexity and have guys walking around with cameras on their hats. And like, I think there's still that sort of thinking. And I'm not saying,
which
like,
is true.
I'm not judging.
Extent,
I'm not
right?
judging. Like, sometimes it's just about, like, I need to get the job done. This is how I've done it. It works. It gets done. I don't need to like add a whole bunch of complexity, additional complexity with technology to get the job done.
Yeah. Would you agree that maybe, and this is an exaggeration or a generalization, should I say rather, that maybe 75 to 80% of projects are step and repeat from previous projects. And then there's only maybe 15 to 25% that's truly unique. If we go with that notion,
Yeah.
does that then mean that all this AI and tech is sort of not really relevant because 80% of what we're doing can just be a template, and then there's only that little bit of really great opportunity and risk because that is where it's truly novel?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I think the ones that do adopt that technology, the early adopters who disrupt the market in a positive way and see the best results, then others follow suit. So the ones that start at the beginning will be the ones that achieve the best.
Yeah.
And then are we talking about change of skill sets though? Because you look at lots of planning CVs, and the skills that are required, Primavera P6 is one of the key ones, right? Anyone with Primavera P6 calls himself a planner. Is that changing or not yet? What's the demand like?
The change is coming for sure.
Yeah.
And I think we are going to see that new skill set adopted. So, when you talk about those softer skills combined with technical skills. So right now, yes, it's been all about Primavera for so long. The latest tool set that people require. If you're a planner on project controls, you should know your work is around Power BI. So if we don't see Power BI on a CV, then there's a bit of an issue at the moment. And before it was always just P6 and everyone naturally assumed MS Office. But from a reporting perspective, Power BI, and now we're going to start to see people put on their CV, did XYZ course in AI or ChatGPT, something related, because that's only going to help them in the future.
So sorry to interrupt. Is that right? When people are looking at resumes, Power BI is a complementary skill that should be there now?
Yeah, it's the one that's not essential, but we'd like to have.
Good to know.
But
that's good for me to know.
Are we then just transferring P6 jockeys to becoming Power BI jockeys, if I'm a little bit provocative?
You need both on that, but what we're talking about here is with AI coming in, how much of a tool, how valuable is P6 going to be in 5-10 years time?
Yeah. Okay.
And that's the change. It's who adopts to that change.
And how does that change, I guess, knowing that, or
the training question.
Yeah, the training question on, what's Plan Academy doing differently, or, how you're adapting to the changing environment?
Well, good questions. We are definitely working on becoming a little more innovative ourselves in learning. It's become apparent to us as we put people through our training courses. Yes, great, we're online, we're self-paced. That stuff works and works well. But there's other areas that we have recognized that we have lots of room for improvement. I'll be open and honest with you guys. One of the challenges that I think we have is that even though we take a kind of a bite-sized approach to each video, if I'm putting together a course, I don't record like an hour of video and make you watch a full hour to get the bit, right? Most of our videos are 10 minutes. But because of emerging technologies and the TikTok and the YouTube shorts and things like that, we're now at a place where I have to break things down even into smaller components. So for example, our core course, P6 Foundations, is 20 hours. That's actually way too long. It's actually, it's too long, and it is a challenge sometimes for people to finish it because it's too long, or because they went in and just wanted to get something out of it, or whatnot. Or they start and they take an extended break and then they try to come back to it, and it's hard to pick up where you left off in such a large course, and maybe overwhelming. So one thing we're working on is thinking about how we design courses and how we can break things up into smaller modules, smaller achievements. Part of what, when I first built Plan Academy, part of my thinking was, I'm one of the first to bring this into an online world.
Yeah.
And my competition at the time was a classroom course. So I had to kind of build it in such a way that it looks like you're in a way to equate it to a classroom course. But now classroom courses are not the competition anymore, and there's no reason to have it structured that way. It should be structured to be a little bit more manageable, more achievements, smaller chunks. You know, you think about so many apps that we have on our phones, right? Like I'm training. I bought this smartwatch, and I'm training for a race I'm going to do, and this thing is like dinging at me all the time with accomplishments. Hey, that was your, most steps in an hour or something like that.
Hit.
Dopamine hit, right? Like, but just always kind of monitoring. And so we want to work on our training and finding ways to, pull out some of these achievements and make it more engaging. So yeah, we have our challenges too.
How do you see ChatGPT? Is that in that threat bucket as well, or not at this stage?
In terms of helping someone learn, or like, what are you thinking?
As a training model. So if someone's stuck with something,
yeah,
versus going to a short, quick, 10-second on this from Plan Academy versus typing something into a large language model like a Bard or a ChatGPT.
That's a really good question. I suppose you could go to ChatGPT and say, create me a 20 video, create me a course, 20 videos, and that teaches me X, Y, Z. And, and you will get some sort of result that maybe is not perfect, but you could work with. Do I think that's a big competition of mine? Not really.
Okay.
I'm not too concerned. Somebody's going to do that. Like somebody will go and create a course like that. It's just a matter of time.
Well, I was thinking that the difference is actually it's because it's all words versus you're visual, so you can't see where to click, what to do, what to enter. So I still think that visual aspect of learning goes a long way versus just typing a question into a ChatGPT.
You've achieved a lot with a lot of people.
Yes.
So people know what you do and what they can achieve by working through your academy.
It's funny you say that, but I don't think of it as reputation, but I think of it as like when someone goes through our course, I don't feel it on my side, but they build a relationship with me because I am the one imparting knowledge to them and teaching them bits and giving them little tips and whatnot. There is a relationship that forms. And if you're just learning from an algorithm, I suppose you can learn, but you might just opt to go a different way. Like maybe it's not your preferred way. I'm not sure. We'll find out. Like someone will prove it,
Well, in a certain sense, what you're saying there is an artificial relationship you're building, your recorded self.
Yeah.
So you already are artificial intelligence.
ChatGPT is one thing, but if you start digging into in the music world, they are creating AI versions of different stars, different artists, right? So someone has created like AI Drake and has said, go record me a song that sounds like Drake, but it's not Drake. And it sounds like it could very easily be a Drake song.
So is that a threat then? Because if someone takes your image and creates video content...
Now it's getting interesting. Right? Could someone just go off and say, take, I don't know, whatever, train it somehow based on whatever I've put out there and say, create me videos that look like Michael? Maybe, right?
And then where does that stop? I mean...
Copyright. What is the infringement side? How's that going?
Well, I'm sure we're going to hit some issues, right? Like even with Drake, right? Yeah. But actually, there's a great, you guys probably have heard of him, but Rick Beato has a great YouTube channel on music and stuff. And I watch his channel all the time, but he actually predicts that the record companies or the music companies will actually go out. He's like, this is going to happen. They're going to create their own AI Drakes and AI Swifts, and they'll all have their own. And, so if you want to listen to AI Drake over here, they'll have their version of AI Drake, and they might have a different version of AI Drake.
We
And
were saying that you could have the greatest band ever created, those in the past.
Yeah.
Today,
Yeah.
it should be a real mix
Right.
of the Beatles, Elvis,
Right.
Michael Jackson.
So you're out of a job already. We decided that. I'm probably out of a job. And actually, maybe this podcast is just going to be an AI podcast. Generate me an AI podcast.
Yeah, that's what Val and I said probably a couple episodes now ago. We just caught up and we didn't happen to have a guest on that episode, and we were just sort of musing as we usually do, and
Yeah.
we just said we're out of jobs with the way AI is going. But no, it's interesting because previously there used to be this notion that AI is great, but you always need creativity.
Yeah.
And now it's showing us actually it can be creative on its own.
Yeah.
Then there was this notion that, well, you need to be a storyteller and a good communicator. But now it's showing us it can do that too.
Do that too, because you did it and it watched you.
Yeah. So then you then question yourself and going, well, when does it start becoming a sentient being that understands its limitations and has intent and develops intent to then break those limitations? And do we then ultimately find ourselves in the matrix and then choosing the red pill or the blue pill, right? Yeah, it's an interesting conundrum, but I think maybe not one for the here and now. Maybe
10 years, 5 years. We're on an interesting trajectory. We really are.
And this is the big thing, right? We don't actually, we're in uncharted territory, and we don't know how this should be governed. Who's the authority? Does
Yeah.
it self-govern?
Right.
It's such a strange place to be in, and I'm really intrigued to see your view on the world, because what's happening in North America, actually, because we don't actually hear a lot from that side of the pond. Is there a lot of hype around the AI side of things as well?
Well, I will admit that I try to insulate myself a little bit from too much of it. But no, there's a lot. I see it a lot on Twitter.
Okay.
Right. There's a lot of discussion around it on Twitter, and people. Obviously you have your fors and your detractors and whatnot, but I don't think it's any more. There's no more fervor than there would be here in North America. I think we have the same kind of level going around. People kind of waiting to see what's next and how do we deal with this upheaval, whatever it is, right? Like, how do we come to terms with it? So
I think I may have mentioned on a previous episode. I think I read. I don't think I was dreaming this. I read something, a small article. I think it was on Sky News, where one of the founders of OpenAI said he thinks it's reached its peak, ChatGPT, because of the amount of energy it requires to exponentially improve what it's doing. And so investors won't see their returns as marginal gains, diminishing gains on returns. And so he thinks it's reached its peak purely from that perspective, not based on its technical ability, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And so if it is hype and it is the peak as we're seeing it today, and everyone's getting onto it, my question then to you, I guess, is, do we go the total polar opposite? Because we're humans, we like sort of novel things. And then, so does classroom teaching then become novel because everyone's doing it online and through AI and ChatGPT? And then will it be, come learn from Michael Lepage in a classroom near you?
These are really interesting questions. I think there's a part of me that still believes that a human can do better than, and do better is a very vague term that I use a lot.
Well, let's peel it back.
I guess you were talking about creativity, right? So can ChatGPT be more creative than you, or can it produce? I don't know. I still think, like, humans, I still think we are innately creative. Like, it's hardwired in our DNA. Whereas I see a ChatGPT, although there's some creativity in there, it's mostly some sort of a copycat kind of tool. So, like, am I worried for Drake? Is Drake going to be out of a job? No, there's still something uniquely Drake in there, and maybe Drake has the ability to take things in a complete opposite direction that ChatGPT never would think of doing it outside its parameters. So I think there's still I'm a bit of a purist that way.
But there's
How do we? Yeah.
there is still the human connection, right? Because
Yeah.
I mean, this is so much better than looking at a screen and
Yeah,
talking
this
to you.
is so much better.
Right.
I will give you that. Yeah.
We had the same in COVID with remote working. Everyone thought it was the end of offices.
Yeah.
And many even people, companies gave up their offices, and now we've got a big pushback now where people actually want to come into the office. They want that face-to-face interaction to get that company culture back.
Agreed. Yeah.
So it's the same. Some of your best friendships are made at work in the same way in the classroom is where you make your network, your colleagues, things like that.
But touching on that, interview processes, how have, I guess, those potentially changed from how they were done? And do the skills required, whether you're in person or on video, change as well?
Yeah, agreed. So that's a really good one. So I think, it has changed. I think the skills needed for a good project control professional has had to change as well, because so much happens on Teams. So you have to communicate in a very different way when you're on a Teams meeting compared to when you're in a boardroom setting or just in the office. It's about that kind of politeness, when right into, because only one person can speak in a Teams meeting, otherwise you're all drowned out. If you're in a boardroom setting, there's 2 or 3 people speaking at a time. It's just understanding best practice and things like that. With interviews, a lot of interviews have now moved to the team set phase and making life easier to speed up the recruitment process. In a traditional world, if you have an interview, you set a day off work, travel to the office and things like that. I still think there's a place for it at a certain level. You should certainly go in, meet the team, or the hiring manager, see the office, you get a vibe from the culture and things like that. So I think all first stage interviews really should be on Teams, and that's just an intro type way. And then where you get to that level where there's a second or third interview, there's that need for the face to face, seeing the real vibe of someone's eye.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because there's those non-verbal cues you won't pick up when you're looking at a screen. That looking someone in the eye, how do they behave, how do they sit, when they're saying things.
And it's a commitment test as well. If someone goes out of the way to go and turn up for an interview, they've taken that time out of their day. Whereas if we look a couple of years ago,
it was a given, right?
In COVID as well, people when we were coming out of COVID, and there was a big recruitment boom. You'd have a Teams interview for 45 minutes, and you get an offer 2 days later. Online, you're not even waiting for the post anymore. So that's what happened in 3 days. It's very easy. Okay, yeah, I've got a 10% increase. I'm going to take it, but then you get your counter offer, and you have no real commitment then to move because you haven't seen that much of that company, and you're just reading them for the money. Whereas now, people are going back to that kind of pre-pandemic ways a little bit, but we're in a halfway house as well, which is an improvement, I would say.
Yeah, it's interesting because, as you say, physically, it's far quicker for you to understand, appreciate, and see the culture of the organization. You may or may not be, joining. Specifically, if you're in a room with, panel of interviewers, where online, you're right. It's like, okay, I can see what I see on the screen, and the money sounds great, so I'll go for it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't change scenery because you're at home.
Exactly, and understand that. But there is a bit of value in looking at Glassdoor or the company website and their values, but someone's written that. Glassdoor is going to be people currently working there that love it, people that left and hate it. There's no really middle ground in that. So by getting there and just seeing a bit of that and finding out more about the company is far more important.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting times we're living in, just across the piece. And I was actually thinking while Chirag was talking there, with people interviewing, and from both perspectives, have you ever been asked to sort of help either companies assess levels of competency, or the other way, helping people prepare for interviews technically? And what does it look like?
Well, actually both. But I will say this, we have kicked around this idea of assessing people's skills in P6. And there's part of me that thinks this is really interesting. There's part of me that wonders why we would only do it. Like, do we assess people's skills in other jobs? I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I would put someone through an Excel test to hire them. You know what I mean? Or if I was going to hire a video editor, I wouldn't need to see them editing a video or something like that. They could give me some work product. So yes, I have been asked, and we've kicked this idea around a couple of times, and I've thought, yeah, this could be really good. And then I thought, no, this is not a good idea. Or does it have any viability?
Right.
But
so it's still on the table. You haven't quite decided.
Well, I'm exploring a little deeper now, because I had a fairly big client of ours say, like, we need to staff up lots of people over the next 2 years, and there's already a shortage in North America. I go to a conference in California every year, Project Controls Conference, Western Winter Workshop. And every year I'm just blown away by the demands. In California, there are 2 or 3 jobs for every planner.
Wow.
And so much so that I was doing some work with a gentleman who works in one of the counties, and he said, like, we can't compete. We need project controls people. We can't compete with the salaries that the large companies are offering. So we actually have to pilfer people from other departments. So he recruits planners from his IT department or his accounting department. It's like, hey, we want a career change, come on over here. And this could be really exciting. And then maybe we train you up, and then you can go over there and make bigger. So
I would say
it's like, wow.
Having that testing tool, because it's such a core part for a scheduler of their day, that's quite a good idea. The perfect interview scenario, if a client wants to hire someone, the initial team's call to understand their softer side of their personality, and then a half-day shadowing. If they could shadow someone,
half-day shadowing.
That would be the perfect. You understand exactly what you're getting from this individual. The individual understands 80% of what the role would involve as well, and also by shadowing a particular individual, to understand a bit more about culture, values, and that would be the ideal scenario. But we've never seen companies do that.
Well, this is something we're kind of going a little, like I said, we're putting a little bit of dollars behind it to explore what it would take to develop something like this. But as you can imagine, it gets complex pretty quick too, because you're not going to have a blanket test for one kind of planner scheduler, or this kind of job versus that kind of job, or are you just updating versus you're building? Do you do cost stuff and earn value versus not? So it gets complicated quickly, but we're thinking we're going to pilot, see if we can develop something and pilot it.
You've been on a major program, TFL, hired many people. Shadowing.
Shadowing is a great idea. For me personally, I've always gone by, the old Simon Sinek view of the world: hire for attitude and train for skill. And so as long as they've got the competency, the behaviors, the attitude to pick things up early, and the want to be able to learn and grow, I'm okay with that. Obviously, depending on the role, again, if it requires someone with a lot of experience using the tool, it requires someone with a lot of experience in that specific sector, that type of project, that specific scenario, whether it's an NEC form of contract, or whether it's a construction versus rail versus utilities. If they've got that experience, then great. But a big part of me also is around the communications and the stakeholder management side of things, because that's a big part of being a really good scheduler or planner, as we call it here. And so I agree with Michael, because it's really difficult to put someone through a test and assess their full capability, where they actually, given the right circumstance environment, be able to pick up the technical skill really, really quickly, and they've got the verbal, the non-verbal, the right attitude. And so is that the right yardstick? Perhaps, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. I'm with you. Like to base it all on some sort of like assessment of your ability in one piece of software seems a little like short-sighted. So you, and also, as we think about developing this thing, it's like my biggest challenge is like, how would you score it? Because the companies or the clients I'm talking to are like, yeah, could you score it? So like this person's an 86 and that person's a 69 and this person's a 73. And I'm like, how would I do that? Like it's, I couldn't figure out a way to do it. I don't know if it's going to be fair.
You need sort of a benchmark, right? You need benchmark data.
A benchmark would help. Absolutely. So,
but where do you get that from?
And is it even worth, is it worth building a benchmark as well to go down that road? So I don't know. We definitely, like, what's proven here is that we have a skill shortage.
Yeah.
We have, I think we have a bit of an education problem too. And I'm not talking about Plan Academy level, but like, I think we don't offer scheduling to enough students in colleges and universities. I don't think it's covered enough, and I don't think people understand that that's an actual career path as well.
Do you know Micah Pipa?
I don't know Micah Pipa.
So Micah was on the podcast a few episodes ago. Both Val and I were on leave, so Martin kindly hosted, and he had a fascinating, he was talking about project planning, and he's got a fantastic newsletter, and he's worked for some of the biggest names. And he was actually advocating for a university degree for planners. And his key argument was, if it becomes a university degree, it's given the necessary focus that it's required, so that it becomes a fully fledged profession and an option for people, so that they're aware of it. And so it gets the funding, it gets all the research, all the skills required, and it's not just per chance you land in a scheduling role or planning role, and you have to pull people in from finance or marketing or everywhere else to create planners. What do you think about that? I mean, obviously university degree versus...
That's an idea that's pretty progressive. Would it be like, I'm trying to think of, like, there's definitely lots of aspects to project scheduling and planning that you can dive into. I don't know if it would be a 4-year degree, but like there definitely maybe a certificate or some sort of accreditation in that world that helps people understand that this is, But, when I think about it, let me step back. Like, you have building, you have progressing, you have, there's this whole world of claims where forensic delay analysis is like huge as well. So yeah, there could be a lot of, you could bring in risk analysis as well. That could be a part of it. Your
data analytics,
your BI piece.
So maybe if there are any university professors, come and talk to Michael Lepage to set this degree up, this course. But also, interestingly, if you are listening out and keen to feedback to Michael on whether or not a competency test is a good or bad thing, I'm sure you'd love to get that data from...
I'd love to hear what people have to say, for sure. Good or bad? Would you use it? I think most people say yes, they would use it. Just give it to me now. But I would love to hear a well thought out reason for where it would come up short. Like, poke some holes in it, because like, I'm trying to find an analogous situation where we do this in another industry or something like that, like where we would actually, sit down and watch someone use a tool and provide some sort of rating based on their ability to use the tool. It seems like, it seems like that's what we're looking for, because people can actually use the tool and create some outputs. But what the clients are telling me is they actually want to see people using the tool and provide some sort of grading based on how easy is it for them, how quick are they, how, do they show their competence, or are they kind of digging around and these are some things that are coming up. So if people have feedback, I'd love to hear it.
Is it also a difficult thing if you did have an assessment like that to know if someone's done it on their own? So would this be a controlled environment?
It would be.
Oh, it would be. It wouldn't be sort of, here's the link, go away. And
no, you would have to control it. I don't want to say too much more because
sure, fair enough.
Share all of my ideas.
No, we don't want you to give away your trade secrets. But I just thought of that aspect because we're in this virtual world. How would that work? Would it have to be on screen with a camera and all that? But don't give away all your secrets just yet.
Talking about competency.
Yes.
People that have been through your academy, there's a big argument. The best planners come from the civil engineering degree.
Mm-hmm.
Civil engineers. How have you seen people that have come through? Who are the good ones that have succeeded? Are they the civil engineers? Or are they people that have come from an animation degree? Or what have you seen unique? Anything far out?
I have seen everything and everybody, and it doesn't seem to be what your undergrad was. And I'll give you a great example. There is he's kind of our ambassador or evangelist, if you want. Is a gentleman by the name of Avi Frank, who was an accountant in New York City, decided he needed a career change, found Plan Academy, went through our stuff. And now he lives out in San Diego, and he's been working on huge projects and project controls and loves every minute of it and is excellent at his job. And he's just and is a real advocate for good project controls and a real advocate for the industry as well, like project controls as a career, because he made a large career shift. And so, he came up with an accounting background. So I don't know, I don't think you need an engineering background. I think it helps to be curious about engineering a little bit. I'm myself curious. When I've been a scheduler, I am like, all right, how are you guys going to build this thing? How do you, what's the first, and that holds that up. Oh, okay. Then you pull that out. Okay. All right. I get it. I think it helps to be a little bit curious about what goes on in the field and not just be a data jockey, right? And that's probably the kind of people you're looking for, I'm guessing.
Well, we've said it before on this podcast that curiosity is one of the key ingredients to being a good project controls professional, because you want to know why. Why, how, can this be done better? It's that curiosity. It's about figuring things out. And obviously with the data analytics skills being complementary these days, my argument has been, and I've said it before, is that project controllers have always been data analysts.
Yes.
Now they're just calling it a different name because you've always looked at data with cost, schedule, risk data, whatever it is, and you try to tell a story from that data and draw insights from it. Now we're just looking at more data, big data, and we have bigger computers and better algorithms to help us make more informed decisions. But then again, to your point, does that murky the waters even more for some? Or if you truly do then know how to use it, is it a blessing? Maybe it's somewhere in between. Maybe it depends, right? But I guess back on Chirag's question around, what has made the best, I guess, historically, if we're looking at today, where do you see, do you have the data to see sort of where people are actually jumping from, which profession they're jumping from now into the planning world? Do you see that?
I don't have a good sense of it. No.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I wish I did have a bit of a better sense. It's not stuff we collect.
Be interesting, don't you think? Because then actually, these are the types of people getting into planning and scheduling today. Do you have a feeling?
Yeah, the other one I was going to ask.
You might have a better sense than I do.
You see QSs jumping over to scheduling.
Quantity surveyors? Yeah. Sure, occasionally, yeah.
And do they make good schedules, do you see? Is that a place where we could be looking, to take
Yeah, I'm not sure I can give you a blanket yes or no on that, but you know, I think I will say this: like for some people, the barrier to entry is just understanding the industry, understanding the knowledge around construction, and in general, just general knowledge around construction. Uh, that's sometimes the barrier to entry is just like, what is this world and how does this whole thing work, and just understanding the dynamics and the owner, contractor, subs, this, you know, all of that stuff. Sometimes that is the barrier to entry. So if you got a quantity surveyor who already has a lay of the land, and maybe even a little bit more because they've got some experience, boots on the ground kind of stuff, they probably do all right.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't know. I think if we did have the data, it would probably tell us that there's a wide range of different professions looking at it and getting into it.
I still see engineering. The ones that have the civil engineering, mechanical, electrical engineering degrees are the ones that are the preferred candidates tend to be.
And I think you're right, because if you think naturally, what is the biggest profession that works on projects in general? It's engineers.
Yeah.
And so engineers would naturally be a big resource pool in comparison to the other professions. I mean, how big's your accounting team on a project versus engineering team, right? It's the largest team. And so an engineer would probably go, geez, I can plan that so much better. Why not jump over? I just need to learn, you know, the things that come along with being a great planner. And so I think that makes sense, what you're saying.
The biggest issue we probably have at the moment is still the sector fussiness. So a rail planner cannot go onto an oil and gas LNG project, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And it's understanding the reasons and educating clients on this. Like really, you know, if they both work on different sites, why can we not transfer skill sets?
We should be able to. There's clearly some things that work differently in those industries, though, and there's probably some rules and some unwritten stuff that. But yeah, I think people should. You know, I think. Let me say it this way: like, I think if you want to become an excellent planner really quickly, go work in shutdowns and turnarounds. You will become an expert in a year. Like you will know everything inside and out because those guys have such intense jobs they work on. You know, with their shutdowns and turnarounds are just such intense works. So I think if you want to get really good really quick, go there. Then you can probably go anywhere you want.
But yeah, I was told early on when I cut my teeth that work on the most difficult project in the company because that's where you'll learn the most. So kind of what you're saying makes sense as well, Michael.
Yeah.
But look, we know you probably quite tired, long day and all, red eye flight and all. We want to spend just a little bit of time. I always like to know what's happening in the Plan Academy world.
Absolutely.
What's going into, you know, what's in the pipeline. Yeah. Can you share without giving too much away or giving everything away?
No, for sure. I can absolutely tell you a couple things. We did a video on YouTube not that long ago where we had a bit of a dramatic title. It was like scenarios in P6 suck, and there was like me going, and that's all. I can attribute that to Evan, who makes decisions around what shows up on the on the thumbnail. Long story short is there's a company that we really like, Alice Technologies. We've got a partnership with them. They, you know, I really recommend everybody just go and Google them a little bit and see what they do. They have a really super cool, I won't use AI. It's not an AI tool, but it's an intelligent tool that allows you to program it to build multiple schedules. And what this allows you to do is to do this kind of optioneering. So let's say we're approaching a project. Typically what we do when we approach a project is someone says, hey, we need a schedule. And you sit down and you bury your head for 6 weeks to create a schedule. But because that work is so intense and it takes so much time, we don't have the ability in P6 to actually consider different schedules, different approaches. What have we started on the left side versus the right side, just a gross oversimplification? Or what if we add extra crews here? How can we see how fast that can go? When you add crews to P6, like to a whole job, like let's say we just doubled our crews on the whole job, it seems like you should be able to do that in P6, but actually when you add crews, you shorten durations, and sometimes you change it will change logic, right? And P6 will not change any of that logic because it's all hard coded. But Alice's tool is smart enough to actually change logic when you change durations and crews, and it will crank out all these different schedules.
Oh, wow.
And you can do you can consider all these approaches to the work, to accomplishing the work through the schedule that you just are not able to do by handballing everything into P6. So that's really, we're excited to be working with them. What we did is we actually, we built a small course for them.
Okay.
They asked us,
Nice.
would you help us? So we did. We built a small course for that. Right now, it's only being used to kind of help them onboard their clients and help their clients kind of get some exposure to the beginnings of the tool. But we also have a deal to be able to license that course. So we're also going to be able to offer it on Plan Academy. And so companies or planners will be able to go take our course and also tinker with Alice software. So that's coming. We're hoping to launch that very soon. That could be really fun for people to kind of see what's possible. So we're excited about that. What else are we doing, Evan? Oh yeah, we are hiring. We've got a couple of jobs we're trying to fill right now. We are, we're a business and we operate like a business, and so we're trying to hire a salesperson. We're trying to hire customer success. We're looking at a whole bunch of different ways, like I said, to restructure our learning. We want to also start to offer things outside of just P6.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out what else is next.
Is that
whether
sort
it's a
of
Microsoft project or
I was
Power
going to say,
project.
is that a strategic, tactical, conscious thing that you're going through, or is it kind of like, software companies out there who wants me to help them? How are you approaching that?
Well, I'm trying to think of my existing clients.
Okay.
Now, one of the things we do, yes, we sell courses to individuals, right? You can come to Plan Academy, buy one of our courses and go through it. But where we think we can grow better is by embedding ourselves in companies and becoming a training provider for different companies.
Right.
And we're offering that to companies, and we're doing it very successfully. So companies come to us and can put all of their new hires through our P6 programs. And what's that? I will just mention that, one large construction engineering company in the US is using us exclusively for all of their new hires. They put about 100 people through our course.
Wow.
And that they see our course as the stage gate for them to move on to the internal training that they offer their county internal university. So that works really well. So we want to be embedding ourselves in companies like that, where we can help them get everybody kind of on the same playing field with a standardized course that everybody can go through. And then figuring out, okay, we've got the P6 foundations laid for you. What else can we help you to learn? Like, maybe it's Power BI. Maybe it's Microsoft Project for those smaller projects that don't need a P6 focus. Or maybe it's Power Project, which I learned today has got such a strong positioning here in the UK, whereas P6 is much stronger over in the North American market. So these are things we're considering. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't have all the answers. Some of it's a bit of trial and error. Some of it's a bit of testing. Like, let's test this and see what the interest is like.
Well, how about a shout out to the listeners and go get in touch with Michael and tell him what you'd like to learn.
Yeah.
And maybe that helps feed, what you put out there in the future.
Absolutely. Construction managers, what do your people need to learn next? Is it delay claims, or is it risk analysis? There's lots of directions we can go. We're trying to figure that out.
Absolutely. Any comments from you, Mr. Recruiter?
So the most in-demand skill set at the moment, clients, is risk.
Is risk?
Yeah, so that's the most in demand.
That's so interesting because historically risk has been reserved for, like, what construction people have told me all the time is, oh, we don't do risk. That's oil and gas.
Yeah.
They do risk. We don't do it. But it seems like that's shifting.
It's COVID.
Yeah.
I think still volume-wise, plan and schedule is, but in terms of the demand, if you start off your career looking for the next change, we want to be in that niche, it's risk.
Yeah, and that's going to require a different headset too, because I took a risk course, so I struggle with it. Like it's really not easy. It's a whole brain shift. So,
but to everyone out there, I think the key focus for the next 12 months, keep up to date with what the trends are, what's happening with AI. We're out of COVID now. Networking is key as well. Get out there face to face and discuss this. You come all the way from the States, so you're out there in the mix, and get out there and meet the fellow professionals.
Yeah, we're open for business around the world. We can see each other. I can see Michael Lepage in front of me.
Absolutely.
We're not on the screen. This is amazing. Yeah. But look, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure and privilege to have you on the podcast, Michael, and you, Chirag.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Before we let you go, any final thoughts you want to leave our listeners with, Michael?
I don't know. I think we should just hammer home this idea of, like, get out and meet people, because I really do find project controls is a relationship business.
Mm-hmm.
You meet people even at a AECE chapter meeting or whatnot, and you develop a relationship, and sometimes those things pay off for a long time. So yeah, get out, meet people, network, take the opportunity. We have a little networking thing tomorrow people should come to, right?
We do. This pod will be released after that, but
if you were there, it was epic.
Absolutely. Chirag, any final thoughts? No? Brain drain. All gone. Yeah. All the thoughts out of your head.
Thank you guys for having me, by the way. This is so great.
No, thank you for being here. Like I say, it's an absolute privilege and pleasure to have you in the flesh. And also, thanks, Evan, for being in the background, putting up and being our live audience member there. But there you have it, folks. That is the end of this episode. But before you go, please do help us pay it forward by sharing a link to this episode on your favorite social media. Once again, a massive thank you to both of our guests, Chirag Shah and Michael Lepage. And thank you all for listening. Till next time, we say stay safe, be disruptive, and have fun doing it. From me and an absent Val and an absent Martin, it's bye for now.